Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Cindy Bonnier. I'm the CEO of the Fremont Chamber of Commerce, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here to our first webinar for the Women in Business Unplugged series. We're very excited to be here, and we're especially excited to have the opportunity to work with the American Lung Association Outstanding Mothers Alliance, who is partnered with us today. We have the honorees for this year, as well as the keynote speaker, and we are excited to have them. I am going to turn this over to Carrie Nash, who's the Executive Director of the American Lung Association and the Women's Outstanding Mothers Alliance, and she is going to open it up and explain to us all about the Women's Alliance and introduce our panelists. So I'll leave that with you, Carrie.
Great, thank you so much. Good afternoon. Cindy, thank you. Thank you to you and the Fremont Chamber of Commerce for having us today. So a little bit about the American Lung Association. For more than a century, the American Lung Association has led the fight for healthy lungs and healthy air, whether it's searching for cures to lung disease, keeping kids off tobacco, or fighting for laws that protect the air we all breathe. Our mission is to save lives by improving lung health and preventing lung disease. In a day when the institutions of motherhood and family are facing enormous challenges in our complex and diversified world, the American Lung Association partnered with the National Mother's Day Council, and we're delighted today to announce the 2020-2021 Outstanding Mothers Award. The award recognizes exceptional women for successfully building their careers, nurturing their families, and helping improve the lives of others. The women we honor have not only advanced women's issues, but understand the importance of giving back and supporting the community. On April 6, 2020, the American Lung Association launched a $25 million COVID-19 action initiative in response to our worldwide pandemic. The initiative will be used to enhance key public health measures and to establish advanced networks to stop future virus pandemics. In an effort to support local communities, the American Lung Association's Women's Cabinet partnered together with our Outstanding Mothers honorees, created what we call the Outstanding Mothers Alliance. The goal of this alliance is to provide awareness, support, and education to the mothers affected by COVID-19 through initiative, mentorship, and volunteerism. Collectively, these women come together. They see a unique opportunity to focus on key areas of impact between business and society, resulting in creative solutions that will hopefully address major challenges affecting our community. I'm excited today to announce our first panelist, who is an Outstanding Mothers Women's Cabinet member and a keynote speaker, Chief Kimberly Petersen. Chief Petersen is a mother of 3 and graduated from Stanford University. She began her career with the Fremont Police Department in 1996 and was promoted to Chief of Police in 2018. With more than 20 years of experience, her career includes assignments in patrol and investigations. She, in fact, was the first female member of the Fremont SWAT team. Prior to her life in law enforcement, Chief Petersen was an avid soccer player, playing both at a college level and professionally. Welcome, Chief Kimberly Petersen. Our next panelist is a recipient of the 2020-21 Outstanding Mothers of the Year Award, Amy Chaffin. Amy is a mother of 2 young children and has a 20-year career at the Coca-Cola company, where she's currently a vice president of national sales. She's been recognized for her driving professional engagement, shaping sustainability programs, and ensuring customer and company profitability. Amy believes deeply in building our future female leaders and is very active in youth programs like the Girl Scouts. Welcome, Amy. Our next panelist is also a recipient of the 2020-2021 Outstanding Mothers Award, Sandra Lowe. Sandra has 2 boys and considers motherhood her biggest accomplishment, as well as her largest challenge. She received her Bachelor's of Art at UC Berkeley and later graduated with her master's degree from UCLA. Professionally, she serves as the Vice President of Corporate Communication and is the Global Head of Public Media and Analyst Relations at Zoho Corporation, a global technology company with more than 8,000 employees and 50 million users worldwide. Sandra is an immigrant from the beautiful island of Taiwan. She considers herself an ambassador for her birth country and is a passionate advocate for diversity and inclusion in her community. Welcome, Sandra. Our final panelist and recipient of the 2020-2021 Outstanding Mothers Award is Carissa Pullman. She's a director, advisor, executive coach, community advocate, and a dedicated volunteer. Caretha is a mother of 5 children, and she is a grandmother to 13. She has spent over 40 years in the technology industry working with startups on strategy development and executive coaching. Ms. Coleman serves as the chairman of the board for Dignity Health Community Care, as well as dedicating her service through board positions with nonprofits both locally and nationally, like the Leveraging Network, KIPP Schools, the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, and the Black Economic Alliance, just to name a few. She's an advocate for women and minorities in business and is committed to mentoring young professionals across the country. Caretha has been recognized as one of the Bay Area's most influential women. Welcome, Caretha.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Appreciate that. We have a very esteemed panel, and I'm excited to get started. So with that, I'm going to introduce our moderator. So with all these very professional, high-level women, we had to get a high-level professional moderator to help us out. We have the Chamber has a wonderful relationship with NBC, and they are extremely supportive of things we do, and so we could not be more grateful than to have with us today Kris Sanchez. Kris Sanchez anchors the weekend edition of Today in the Bay, NBC Bay Area's morning news program. And prior to joining ABC Bay Area family, Kris was anchored in El Paso, Texas, doing newscasts. She was also in Grand Junction, Colorado, Fresno, and Los Angeles. So thank you so much, Kris, for being with us, and I'm going to let you take it from there. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. This is my first time moderating a virtual panel. So that is one of the interesting things coming out of our COVID pandemic. But I am good at moderating because I have 2 girls and they are 13 and 11 and they need a lot of moderating. So I have some experience in that. But I'm so glad to meet you guys, and I'm hopeful to hear what your lessons learned are, because I think that right now we're all kind of reinventing the wheel, and it's a good time to lean on each other and kind of figure out how to make your lessons work for me and my lessons work for you, and just kind of move forward that way. So thank you very much, all of you, for being here. I did put this question out, like, what are the lessons that you learned, out on my social media pages, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and people were very interesting in their answers. They were like, everybody has to help at home, mom can't do it all, was one of the lessons that they learned. That everybody is going to start baking if you shut down the economy. That's what they're going to do. And then some more serious comments that, you know, we do need to mind our fiscal responsibility, not just as people, but as businesses and community leaders. So I will ask you a question that kind of drives me nuts, because people always say, like, what is the secret to work-life balance? And my opinion is that there is no such thing. It's where are you putting your attention in that moment? So I wouldn't call that balance for sure, but I'll start with you, Amy and Sandra, because you have little ones at home still. Amy, what are you doing to kind of balance things out?
So, Kris, I fully agree with you. I don't think there is such a thing as work-life balance. It's, you know, kind of the scale. When one goes up, the other goes down. And there's not a time when you can do everything well. And so, you know, for me, there's days certainly now that I don't feel like I'm doing anything well. I'm not doing my job well. I'm not doing motherhood well. And it's a stressful time. But I try to take a step back and look at how can I, in that moment, connect best with my employees and with my children, and what can I do? Because you can't do it all. And knowing to have that space for yourself to know you're not going to do it all well, but what can you do in that moment?
Right. Well, Sandra, you have a 5-year-old and an 11-year-old. I would assume that you're not only working from home, but you're momming and you're teaching from home too.
Yes, absolutely. So I agree with what Amy said. To say that it is a juggle is definitely an understatement. You know, as you mentioned earlier, Kris, it's about, you know, making priorities and shifting those priorities. It's about making plans and then making a new plan again. It's whatever the day throws at you, because every day is a new challenge, and I'm sure we all can relate to that. And, you know, I also find that, you know, it is part of me has also learned that I need to somehow find time to relax and to learn how to gain more patience. So certainly it's been a wild ride the last few months, but you know, I think being flexible in how we take each day and what it throws at us is key to actually managing it all, if we can say that.
Well, that was one of the lessons that I've learned in this pandemic, is that I'm not as patient as I thought I was. So I'm working on that. And Caretha, your kids are grown, but you know, you have 5 kids and 13 grandchildren. What's the advice from your perspective, kind of looking at those of us who still have the little ones at home?
I think, first of all, I agree with my colleagues. There's really no such thing, and you said that too, Kris, as what balance is for any one person, but I do think that we define that for ourselves, and over time, we have to get comfortable with what that is. And for me, over time, whether I was working full-time and running a household and traveling, etc., or now when I find myself semi-retired, but still feel like I'm working my butt off, doing a bunch of things. Balance is still now, today, catching it just before it hits the floor. That's how it's always been for me, and that's what it is now. And so I think it's really making your peace with what that is for you is really important. And perfection is always fleeting. So probably not worth chasing.
That is true. Chief, I want to ask you, I'm considered an essential worker. That's not the image of an essential worker that I usually have. I think of somebody like yourself, a police officer, firefighter, as an essential worker. Now we have all of this population of essential workers that maybe never thought of themselves that way. The grocery clerks, the delivery people. What are you doing to keep yourself safe, not just from what's happening outside of the world, you know, out in the outside world that's normal for your line of work, but then layering on the need to stay safe from coronavirus?
Right. You're so right in realizing, like we've all had to, how important everybody is in things like the grocery stores. And, you know, it never occurred to us that we have to have people who are working at the gas stations, et cetera. So, you know, I think that you have a really good point in terms of saying this has really expanded our thoughts on who are essential workers. But of course, speaking from the police perspective, it's been really, you know, frightening. It was really scary. A lot of anxiety with the officers and the firefighters, because as you said, they already have a very dangerous job. I mean, they understand when they kiss their kids goodbye in the morning, folks who work the street, you know, it's possible they could get hurt that day. It's possible they may not make it home. And that's a reality police and firefighters, you know, live with and wrestle with every day. So then you add on top of this layer of anxiety with a disease we don't understand. You know, we just don't have the knowledge of what would it do. If you think back to March 17th when everything shut down here in the Bay Area, that caught us completely by surprise. You know, and so we had to very quickly make plans for our police department, which obviously I can talk about later, but just at a personal level, the worry about bringing that home. There was never a question from our personnel that we were going to work the next day and the next day and the next day. They understood that that is part of the commitment you make in these types of jobs. So, you know, we had to make plans with our families and say, okay, if, you know, I do get sick, what am I going to do? And so some officers chose for a period of time to live in, you know, granny units or sheds, or a lot of them have trailers. I think that has eased off as we've gone. We've realized, okay, you know, it's maybe not as dangerous as we first thought. It's certainly still dangerous, but a lot of people, especially in police work, it's a young person's job. You know, they don't typically have a lot of underlying medical conditions. But like for me, we made a plan. Okay, if I get sick, we're gonna bring our trailer over to our house. It's in storage right now, and I'm gonna actually have to live separately. So, you know, unfortunately, you have to think through those things. How do you keep them safe? You gotta wash your hands when you come in every single day. But it's part of my responsibility, keeping myself safe at work so that I don't bring it home to my family. So that's been, you know, brand new for all of us.
Yeah, I was just about ready to go live on the air from Costco talking about the toilet paper hoarding on the day that the lockdown was issued. And my first thought was, forget the toilet paper. I just found out that my kids are going to be home from school for 3 weeks. And not knowing that it wasn't going to be 3 weeks at that point, that it was going to be for the rest of the year. So I was a little distracted during that live shot. I'm not going to lie.
I bet.
But I think that, you know, for me, I've been able to take some of the lessons in patience and kind of trying to direct focus to do my job a little bit differently. Amy, you've talked about in your bio that you are a big believer in mentoring. What are you going to take from this pandemic and our response to this pandemic moving forward as you're mentoring people about, you know, living a long time in their job that they love?
Yeah. So I think in this time, it's really important that as your business is shifting, you're shifting as well. And I know that it's hard. You're balancing so many things and juggling so much with work and home and your business shifting. But how do you go out and be super curious about what trends are emerging from this? Things are changing and changing rapidly. People are adjusting. You know, I work in a consumer industry, and consumers' habits are changing incredibly fast. So how do we adapt and change and look at making ourselves better and know these things that are going to change? So I think that my advice to people that I'm mentoring are certainly in this time, spend the time on yourself, being curious and learning as much as you possibly can, because maybe industries that were really strong prior to this are going to change, and maybe new things will emerge. But without that intense curiosity, we aren't going to know what they are. So looking for ways to better ourselves and be curious about what's next.
Oh, so Amy, you're talking about from the employee standpoint. Sandra, I want to ask you from the management standpoint. What does this mean for how you manage people going forward now that, you know, maybe people who have never worked from home are working from home? Maybe people who, you know, have been your go-to, maybe are changing positions because of restructuring or what. I don't know that your company's doing that, but, you know, we have heard word of people being furloughed or, you know, being moved into different positions. So how does that affect how you're going to manage your staff?
Well, one of the biggest lessons I learned about myself during this time as a team leader is that it is a good thing and it is absolutely okay to show your vulnerabilities to your team. I think that, you know, whereas, you know, Amy's company focuses on consumers, we are a technology company. So it's, in some ways, it's, you know, what I've learned is to be more human-centric during this time, meaning, you know, fewer group meetings, but more one-on-one meetings with the staff who perhaps need that the most is probably, you know, what will build the long-term trust between the employer and the employees in the future. So, you know, so that's, and then also another big lesson I learned through all of this that I would certainly, you know, communicate to my team is that not everything, as we realize, is a necessity. You know, where we used to be, you know, running, you know, 8 to 6, 8 to 9, whatever the work hours are, you know, not everything is a necessity anymore. And our priorities are shifting, our work hours are shifting. And it's much more about what are the end results that we can all agree on, what is going to have the most impact versus actually, well, when are you going to do something and how and when? So, you know, I think our team culture has certainly shifted during this time, but I actually think that we are a much stronger team for it.
Do you think that it increases the faith in your employees to see how they've managed to get it done under these circumstances with what I like to call virtual duct tape? You know, you've got cords and little people running around and like just all of the chaos, does it renew your sense of faith in your employees to see how they've managed to work it out?
Oh, absolutely. Because I realized it's not needed for me to sort of have my hands on everything or have me approve every plan and proposal. And I have a very capable team who now has this chance to actually show what they can do. And I think as a whole, as the whole company, I think we are defining what future of work looks like.
All right. Caretha, I was interested to hear from you. You did that capital campaign for the East Palo Alto YMCA. We've seen so many of our community members and organizations really rise to the occasion and deliver services and kindnesses to people who are in need. Do you think that that is going to continue even as people are, you know, on the unemployment roster and, you know, companies are shifting, you know, their work staff?
I do think so. You know, I think that we're getting some feedback here. Is that better? You know, the nonprofit work is even more needed now. And so I think that people need to find ways to be involved in those organizations. That the Y, I know that, which is the organization in East Palo Alto that you're talking about, that their needs are very great, and they're waiting for the time that they can re-engage.
And you think the funds will be there? Or are we going to have to get creative about how we use people's manpower versus how we use people's money?
Trying to be engaged in different ways. But yes, the people are being laid off from those organizations. But even those workers are trying to be very involved remotely and find other ways to give back in the community.
Chief, I'm curious to hear from you, because you are out in the world still circulating, not just going to the grocery store as some of us have been doing, the shelter in place. I mean, it's kind of a skewed perception of reality, I would think, right? When
it's great.
Go pick up toilet paper and groceries. So in circulating out in the community, what do you see might be different in our new normal?
I think out in the community, you know, there is, I am seeing a lot of patience. I'm seeing a lot more patience with people, and I would just say small kindnesses to one another. And I'm literally talking about the trip to the grocery store. You know, I definitely see people being very respectful of one another's personal space. Of course, there are some who are not, absolutely. And but I am seeing a lot more of that. I'm seeing a lot of renewed appreciation from the public towards public servants. And I don't just mean police officers, but you know, all of those people who are continuing to work. There's a real sense of gratitude for the people who are out there continuing to do that job to make sure, you know, the rest of us can do ours and that we can all take care of our own families. So I'm seeing a lot of that. I do also, on the flip side, see quite a bit of, I'll just call it complaining about, you know, one another, people out there. We get, you know, the bulk of the complaints about people not wearing masks, for example. Mm-hmm. And while there's certainly a role for police to play at times with that, I have to just remind people that, you know, in the end, this virus is with us for the foreseeable future. And we really have to take some personal responsibility, and we can't look to just government entities, whether it's the health departments or the governor or the federal level, to control everything. You know, people have to make decisions. And if they feel that people are at this grocery store not following the rules, then they really need to make some choices about where they go to shop, for example. If they feel like people at the park are not doing enough social distancing, you know, we have to take some personal responsibility in that. If that's not comfortable for us, then we need to make the choice to leave. I realize that's not possible 100% of the time, but right. You know, we can't look to government to control every single thing for us.
Right. So, Amy, I'll ask you this. In what way have you had to be the most flexible during the pandemic?
In so many ways, I have had to be flexible. So, you know, I think that I would say more at home than at work. I do work remotely, always. And so it's interesting. I work for a company that's headquartered in Atlanta, where that group never works remotely, but I'm always remote. So for me, that hasn't been tremendously different. I normally travel a lot, and I'm obviously not traveling right now. So I've found extra time in that. But at home, I have a second grader, and normally she goes to school and does amazing things with her teacher. And I've had to be really flexible, and she's home, and I'm helping her with her schoolwork. Thankfully, she's an incredible student and very self-sufficient and independent and does so much of it on her own. And I have a toddler. He's almost 2, and he loves video conference calls. He gets on my lap and talks to everybody. Yesterday, I was on the phone with my finance team, and she needed help with her homework. I asked them because it was math. So I think that I think everything's become really intertwined between work and home life. And I would say more flexibility in the home, just because it's so different than how I've ever known motherhood. I've worked for the Coca-Cola company for 20 years, and I've only been a mom for 8 years. And so that flexibility is really where it's come in.
Well, I'm curious. I mean, usually at NBC Bay Area, everything is very buttoned up. Everything is very polished. We like our graphics very slick, and we've had to kind of let go of that and say,
Yeah,
Zoom, we're doing Skype, we're doing Ring Central, you know, and just kind of relax. My most embarrassing moment, which was not even that bad, my poor daughter got dressed. I live in a 939 square foot house with one. So there's just limited opportunity for changing the background. Right now, I'm just almost basically in my closet right now because they're awake and doing their homework. But she kind of walked through the shot. And I just wonder if you've had any moment where you felt really kind of vulnerable or exposed because your workplace was in your home, if you've had any moments like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we didn't do video before this, and now every one of my meetings is via video. And so to your point, my daughter has run through the screen. My son, keep in mind he's the toddler, he had wanted to sit on mommy's lap and have his bottle, and then he finished it, and I wasn't on mute, and he let out a huge belch for the whole and that was incredibly vulnerable and embarrassing in that, but it was cute because he's 22 months old. But there's certainly been vulnerability, and I think that, you know, I lead a remote team. We never did video before, and now we all do. And I love seeing people's dogs. I love seeing their children. I love the interaction. I think that the kids that are growing up in this today, for everything they're losing, they're gaining so much by seeing their parents in their work environment and seeing how things, video calls and everything else. And I think that there's a lot of good that will come out of it.
Well, Chief, you said that your kids are having their promotion ceremonies today. So what's that been like, trying to balance? I mean, if they're having a promotion ceremony, this is obviously a big year for them.
I have 3 kids who are graduating this year. So my oldest daughter graduates from UCLA, so she doesn't get to do her walk, which she's very sad about. They're talking about a Zoom one, but you know, it's not the same. And then my 8th grade promotion, my 5th grader is having his promotion. So normally I wouldn't do a meeting like this actually from my home. Normally I do still go to work, but because it's a promotion ceremony, I'm at home today. But I must say, Kris, that you clearly still have your glam team working for you at your house. I can see it. And I feel your pain with the small house and the one bathroom, because I've raised 3 children in a one bathroom house. So I can
Well,
relate.
I'll tell you, that was a big part of the conversation my husband and I had. We said, what happens if one of us gets sick?
Yeah.
He's able to work from home, so I'm the only one that's exposed. And obviously we'll have to quarantine. And I said, but how do you quarantine? You have one bathroom. I can't get Lysol spray. Can't find it anywhere. What do we do? And he said, well, we'll just get a porta potty and put it in the driveway. So I have been very diligent about washing my hands because I do not want to go to a porta
I
potty.
hope he doesn't expect you to sleep in it.
No, I would sleep in the man cave. You've definitely gotten creative, that's for sure. Sandra, your kids are pretty small too. Have you been mortified in any way?
Yeah, well, plenty of moments. But one of the things that I realized right away, probably 2 weeks into shelter in place, was, with all my different meetings, what I've tried to do was tell everybody, whether you have kids, a messy background, bad hair day, no makeup, whatever it is, let's not apologize for any of this. And this is something I'm also adapting to, because often, and I think many of you actually heard me say this, oh, sorry, Cameron wants to make an appearance. But I'm trying to teach myself, but also my team, that this is real life. This is the new setting that we have for work and for home. So let's just be ourselves. So, that's something that I've been trying to do. But yes, many, many horrifying moments. I think that, yes. I mean, I feel like one of them will barge in any second. But when they need mommy in any state, in tears, half dressed, you name it. So, but I'm here for them.
Well, that's great. And it has been nice to see people, working from home. Have been, we have to go to our city council meetings differently, watching the council members or the supervisors, picking up their dog or like petting their cat. I think it's kind of humanizing, where at the beginning of it was horrifying to me to like just kind of say, I want you to see this. I don't want you to see all of this. I don't know if you'll respect me if you see, how you might disagree with how I run my life. But now we've gotten a little bit more insight into how we all run our lives, and it's shockingly pretty similar. I would say. So here's a question professionally, right? So we know that people are losing their jobs, they're being furloughed, maybe taking position changes or pay cuts. Can this be an opportunity for growth? Can this be a good time to switch into a new position that maybe you wanted to try before and you didn't have opportunity to? Or is this kind of a lost time, just hold on and wait for a better day? Anyone?
Who are you directing that to, Kris?
Any one of you. I mean, it'll be interesting to hear all of the different perspectives. I mean, I think some people are just like, put your head down, hunker down, you just hold on to what you have, versus, well, maybe I should try something new.
And of course, everybody's perspective is unique, and I wouldn't presume to know each person's specific circumstances. So with the police department, you tend to stay a lifetime, which is very unusual. Amy has basically been with Coca-Cola for a lifetime as well, and again, that's unusual in the private sector nowadays. It's not so much in the public sector. We tend to stick around. So, for us, there is some stability. But as far as finding new opportunities, I tell people, whether it's internally or externally, I tell people, you can't let chances slip by you. If you see something that interests you or that is calling to you, a lot of times it's just timing, and that chance may not come again. But as far as your idea of like putting your head down, well, you just can't do that. This is the time where people need to shine. This is the time where people need to step up, and where the leaders depend on the levels below them to get the work done. One of the biggest things for me during this whole thing is learning to, more than before, step back and really, I have several layers below me, really stay in the commander's intent, because I'm at the top of an organization, articulate that commander's intent, put the right people in the right places, and then let them do the work. And they're doing an amazing job. But now is the time where we need people to step up and shine. We're counting on them. And I'll tell you what, at our agency, they're doing an amazing job.
Amy, opportunity for growth in this time, or kind of lost time and wait for better days?
I couldn't understand you, Kris.
I think it's certainly not lost time. I think that this is a tremendous time to do so many things. And what we've really tried to do at Coke, think of our business has shifted tremendously. One thing that we do really well is food service, but our food service partners, many of them are closed, especially in California, and they've had to shift to online and to go. And so we're really trying to partner with them and help them with to go solutions. But we've also worked with people to find ways to have short-term assignments, because if all of your customers are closed, how are you going to, what are you going to do? And for us, it's tremendously important to protect our human capital and keep people employed. And so we've deployed a number of short-term assignments and flexing people to other work and helping them grow with that, something they may have never done before. You know, I've got salespeople that are working on algorithms for product replenishment, because it's where the work's needed right now, and it's something that helps them grow.
And Sandra, have you found that too, or shifting people's responsibilities? You know, I know that there's one particular restaurant in Palo Alto where they clearly were, you know, they were shut down and they wanted to keep their employees on the payroll. So what they did was they are paying their employees to work at like a food distribution place, you know, to do the kids' meals. So I thought that was a pretty creative solution. Have you had to, or have you gotten to come up with any creative solutions like that to keep people working, even if their normal job is not available to them?
Yes, absolutely agree with what Kim and Amy have said. So there have been a lot of shifting of talent within Zoho as well. You know, whereas sales and support numbers may be down, you know, the same type of people skills are needed for digital marketing, for example. And, you know, for anyone out there outside of our company, you know, that are looking for a career change or feel that this is not the right time for career growth, I would certainly encourage them to explore what their inner strengths are, because you know, this time, you know, and we talked about being human-centric, this is a time where some of those skills are more needed than anything else. And this is also a time where the traditional 9-to-5 day is no longer the case. You know, so use that flexibility, you know, use that interpersonal skill to find yourself a new path. And I absolutely think that there are a lot of opportunities right now to redefine careers.
Caretha, you stepped away for just a moment. You were saying that has a little to do with work-life balance.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't hear you.
So you had to step away for a moment. You're working with
yes, I did.
Life balance issues.
Life balance. No, actually, the technology wasn't working for me. The internet went down, and it's just like, okay, fine. What do I do now? So, you know, it's more of the same. More of the same. I'm getting used to it.
It's tough. It's tough because you've had, a lot of us have had to go from working as part of a team to then suddenly being a one-man band, and you are your IT person and you are right. All of your people, right? Your sounding board and all of it.
Right.
I'm glad that you were able to work it out. So what,
me too, without losing my mind.
With your experience, what do you think that people can do to stay viable, to try to keep their position in their workplace, even if their workplace is shifting?
You know, I think it's a lot of what my colleagues just talked about, but certainly for any number of years, in business, we know that one of the things that's really important, one of the elements is to really be able to be adaptable. And if nothing else, certainly this crisis has put us right square in the place where we have to be that. And we have to figure out what that is, again, for each of us, because it's going to be very individual. But even going forward, that is probably one of the most critical talents that we are going to have to use, that are definitely, I see my kids using it and my grandkids in terms of, okay, so this happened, now what do I do? do I give up? Because some people will, but I don't think it's the time to do that. They say, and I believe it, that in crisis comes opportunity. And I think we've seen that all around us. And certainly in the healthcare industry, that has been very, very true. So I think adaptability.
I think you say the crisis part, that in crisis there's opportunity. Is that what you said?
Right. It's an old adage, and it is very true. I think we're living it right now. Look at the people who are trying to come together and galvanize and make masks for people, right? That are so important. Look at the companies that are redesigning themselves and deciding, okay, well, we used to make cars, but maybe we need to make ventilators. And so I think that again, it's at humanity as the basis. If you really believe that you are a part of this overall humanity in our world, then there's nothing but opportunity to be creative right now. And so I wouldn't give up. I think you ought to look at, well, gee, I've always been sitting back in my job saying, if I only had this amount of time, or if I only had this opportunity, I would go do something else. Well, this is when that's put to a test.
Yeah, we've definitely seen that in our business too. So we have some questions from some of our audience who are joining us. Renu Kumar says that women are so compassionate and passionate in everything that they do. Kudos to all of you. So I'll pass the compliment along first. Also, let's see. We have a question from Kim Marshall. How difficult has it been as a business community leader to deal with the changing mandates? For example, the stage 2 in Alameda County, while other counties are fully opened. Sandra, this might be interesting for you because you do have people working in 12 different regions. You want to start that?
Sure. So yes, we do have people across the globe, but I think in our case, and I know it may not apply to the question specifically, we have a company mandate based on what we feel is safe. So for example, while the Brazilian government may not have shelter in place, we are here to protect our Brazilian employees by telling them that, Zoho will support you with all your remote tools. We will make sure that you are safe, and not given the pressure that they need to continue to work, pre-COVID-19 times. So I know that doesn't quite answer the question, but certainly from our company perspective, protecting our citizens and constituents and customers will be our priority.
Chief, how's that been for you? Because, you're dealing with the county that you work in, but then that a lot of the folks who show up in Fremont live someplace else, work in Fremont, or live in Fremont, or traveling to other counties, and having that disparity between who's opening up when.
It's been incredibly challenging. I remember before March, none of us had ever heard of an order like this. None of the police departments had ever had to manage this. March 16th, when I got the order, that was the first health order I have ever read in my entire life. And we're essentially responsible for the enforcement of that order. So we had to stand up a compliance team. But since that moment, it's only gotten trickier and trickier, because at first everything was shut down. It was pretty clear which businesses were open and could operate. We still had a lot of education to do. We took a voluntary compliance stance right from the get-go. It's so confusing. Everybody's anxious. Nobody understands the virus. So we felt that we would take a much more educational stance rather than an enforcement stance. As we progressed into the next month, we took a little bit more of an enforcement stance and started issuing written warnings. But still, all along the way, each time there is a change, it confuses people. Most people, they don't take the time to read the order. Most people don't do that. Friday, when the president started demanding that houses of worship be allowed to open, I was getting calls from the various faith-based communities saying, hey, we want to do prayers today. We want to do a church service on Sunday. And I had to say, you can't do that yet. Our county is under different rules, and believe it or not, the local government controls. So it's been very challenging, and it's only going to get more challenging now that every county is doing things a little bit differently. So,
right, yeah. We've heard the criticism. All the media is just, they tell you one thing and they tell you something different the next day. But in this particular pandemic, it is different. I take a nap in the middle of the afternoon so I can stay up late. Everything changes by the time I get up for my nap.
Yeah.
And then I go to bed, and everything changes by the time I wake up at 2:30 in the morning. It has been just, my brain is just swimming.
Keeping up with those first 2 months was literally a 24/7 job.
Yes, and just like, can you guys just fact check me, please? Like, there's no pride here. Like, just please, I'm not going to take it personally. Make sure that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, very challenging.
Caretha, what would you say is your best advice or tool, personal or professional, that people who are struggling can put to work immediately?
I think, again, part of it is, as I said before, that you need to find where your levels of adaptability are. And I think that the other thing is a lot of what people have talked about has to do with perspective, right? And I think that perspective that people have been gaining all over the country and all over the world through this crisis is so important. If you can just sit back for a minute and take notice of what the message is that you're trying to get from this, or what we're supposed to each get from this, right? And it's different. And I think if you do that, it puts you in a place where you feel like you're in more control. Because right now, what's happening is most of us feel like we're not in control. We didn't wish this on ourselves. We didn't want this. We didn't really see it coming. And then when it came full force, right? And so everything was turned upside down, just like Kim said. And so I think we need to find those places, those areas, however small they are, where we feel like we are in control. And we will all have them. But I think that when we feel that we don't have control, that everything sort of runs amok, right? Because we don't even know where to begin to find the center. And I think we all need to find that. And I have loved the perspective that some of us have gotten during this time. You know, it's interesting because the COVID-19 crisis in and of itself is hard enough, as we've been discussing. But within a 3-week period of time with the onset of COVID, we lost a grandchild, unfortunately, for a very bad car accident. My husband has had surgery. We have had to basically displace a lot of things that we had been doing. And so when things like that happen, you realize, okay, yes, this is bad, but we have a place to live. We can afford to buy food for longer than a week. We have the wherewithal to do other things and to help other people, which really, I think, again, is something we can control and makes us feel better about the situation because we're doing something.
I think you're absolutely right that people have been willing to reach out and help. And I think the giver has been the greatest beneficiary of that. In many cases. Amy, do you have a tool or a trick or a motto, something that can help people who might be floundering right now?
I think that, and this is advice I have to wake up and give myself every day. This is unprecedented time. People are under tremendous stress. And whether it's businesses that aren't sure that they're going to be able to continue out of this, and employees who, people who have been furloughed, moms that are now homeschooling or working, children that are used to going to school and having friends that they can play with that no longer are able to see them. Everybody is under tremendous stress. So I wake up every day and say, I need to be more empathetic. I need to have grace for myself and others, and just allow people the ability to have that stress, and how can I help them and not add to it. And I think that, my thing that I wake up and tell myself is, okay, let's start this day with grace and see how we can give that to others.
Yeah, that is a good morning pep talk, for sure. Sandra, you mentioned something earlier, like find the time to relax. And I think a lot of us might have thought, what's that?
Exactly my question too. But well, I'm not promoting this app by any means, but I have discovered by chance the Breathe app. Take 30 seconds to breathe. Take 60 seconds to breathe. And, you know, it just calms me down and helps me find the next level patience when everything seems to be crumbling from home to work. And, you know, another piece of advice I would want to give is that, you know, there are more than one way to do something. This is a time to be adaptable, to be flexible. You know, if one way doesn't work, there is going to be another way. So that's what I keep telling myself day to day, you know, when something isn't going according to plans. And then lastly, as others said, you know, be there to help, but also don't be afraid to ask for help. You know, I'm always surprised and plus, you know, and touched that when I do feel that I can ask for help, that help is always there. And that mutual bond, that sense of community is something that will help all of us during this time.
Chief, any words of inspiration or help or?
I don't know if the words of inspiration, but to piggyback on Sandra, for me, exercise has always been my relaxation, you know, and if I don't get my workout in, I'm kind of grumpy all day long. And, you know, we had to close our gym. So, yeah, I also am not promoting this app, but we bought the Peloton at home and I'm using the heck out of that app because I'm doing the yoga, which I've always loved the idea of doing yoga, but I don't like to do it, you know, I'm terrible. I can barely touch my knees, you know. Now I can do it in the comfort of my own home. It's got these other workout apps and I'm doing a meditation app at night, which has really been fantastic because I can lay down, turn it on, but it really puts me right to sleep and I'm sleeping really well. I really attribute that to
great.
Yeah, using that thing. So, as far as in the workplace itself, you know, I go back to the whole, if you want to predict the future, you need to make it. I'm sure I'm not saying it exactly. That's an Abraham Lincoln quote, but this is our new normal, right? It's at least in policing, we've come to about the end of this current change. There will be some other changes, of course, but we have to take what we have now and build on that as our future. It's not going to go back to where it was before. You know, we have adapted virtually for a lot of things, but it's changed our interactions with the public, very different. We've changed our service delivery. We've brought some methods of reporting online or virtual, you know, phone, et cetera. We're encouraging our officers to take a lot of information over the phone first, even if they're just right outside the house, on calls where it's appropriate before they go in. You know, the officers are having to wear full PPE. Which is, you know, it doesn't feel like real comfortable and close and, oh, I really want to talk to this person when they're head to toe in PPE. You know, they got the glasses, the N95 and the gloves. You're not feeling like a real, you know, strong interpersonal connection initially, right? Yeah. So we're having to adapt to all of these changes. But this is our new normal because that's not going to be different in December. We're going to be doing a lot of this same stuff. And so we just have to build on it. We have to create the future that we want. I will say, though, that some of these adaptations have been fantastic. I could see a future where dispatchers could work from home. You'd have to set every one of them up with all the technology, and that would be a big deal. But, you know, that's putting some big changes in our minds. So, you know, we have to work towards those things, and we have to create that future that we want.
Right. I'll agree with you that it's been difficult not having that interpersonal communication, having to wear the masks while we're out reporting. We now, instead of having our microphone up close and talking to people intimately, a lot of times we're reaching out to people in their worst moments, and suddenly now we have a mask covering our face, maybe glasses, and a microphone on a 6-foot pole. And yeah, it's really interesting to try to create that intimacy when you can't physically be intimate, you know, when you can't be that close.
It changes your communication.
Mm-hmm. So I think that maybe we'll just get better about our minor cues, right? Like we'll read each other a little bit better, maybe going forward. I don't know.
Yeah.
Certainly it's awkward when you have to say, can you please step back? I can't do it. Don't tell my bosses, but I have a really hard time going. Need you to step away.
Yeah, right. And that's interesting, because I think one of the things that will change that we haven't talked about at all, because the world's not talking about it, is that our language is going to change, right? In terms of, we talk about social distancing, but social distancing can mean something very negative, because people can take that and make it fit sort of in a way that isn't inclusive. And so maybe it's something more like physical distancing that we really are trying to, that's what we're trying to convey. But, right? And so I think that that's just one example. But that whole language, the way that we interact with each other, is going to change. It doesn't have to be bad, but it will be different.
And what do we do to replace the handshake? I mean, that's like a
yeah,
legitimate
exactly.
question.
Or the hug, or the, yeah.
Well, before the gym shut down, it was, fist bump or, elbow bump. And I'll tell you, I don't want a fist bump at the gym. I'm too mad about being there. So when they said no more fist bumps, like, thank goodness. And no more partner workouts, like, thank God, I'm tired of being picked last. So that worked out well for me. But, I think it can't be completely terrible. I mean, we have to find a way to come out of this better, and make it work for us, because the alternative is too sad. It's too bad. Right. So I think, we haven't gotten a lot of questions from our viewers. Biggest business victory, or what would you like to take back?
I'll jump in on that, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I think that my biggest business victory during this time was reappropriating our internal talent into roles that they feel even more passionate about, and also saving their jobs. I think we talked about that earlier. It was just helping them find purpose, and helping them, adjust to the sign of the times and still have their livelihood. And I guess in terms of moment I would love to have back, well, we just touched on this. I wished I knew this was all happening so I could hug each and every one of my team members the last time I saw them, to let them know that everything is going to be okay and we're going to get through it.
Yeah, it did sneak up on us pretty fast. The last day I was in the newsroom, my boss said, my cameraman is Alan. She said, love you, Kris. Love you, Alan. Don't want to see you around here anymore. I was like, oh, sorry. I didn't even take my things from my desk, because I thought, we'll be coming back. They just mean, like, don't come back a lot. But that was it. That was, March 17th. That I had to get one of my producers to take some stuff out of my desk and leave it on the front stoop at the station so I could just pick it up. And that was very strange. So I agree with you that, I wish we could have known before. We could have buttoned it up a little bit before we left our face-to-face contact. Amy, you have a business victory or something you'd like to take back?
Yeah, I think, similar to Sandra's, I'd say my business victory is we have kept my staff happy, healthy, and employed, and really made sacrifices to ensure we're able to do that. And I think that that's the most important thing. As far as things that I'd like to take back, I keep thinking of this, something that I've started out of this whole social distancing is really a reconnection with people that I hadn't. We started happy hour with my college girlfriends, and we do that frequently. We're all over the world, so it's kind of awkward time frames sometimes. But I wish I would take that back. Why haven't I done that for the past 20 years? Like, why are we only getting together once every 3 years for this in-person reunion, where I've given up so much time and enjoyment where I could have been spending with these people that I really love and connect with? And from everything, we've come up with so many creative ways to connect with people that in hindsight, it's like, why didn't I do that before? And so I think that while we certainly have lost so much, your ability to hug your teammates and, you know, say, hey, goodbye, I'm not going to see you in person for I don't know how long. We've gained so many other ways to connect with people, and that's really tremendous.
Yeah, I would say at Fremont PD, our biggest business victory was that we made huge changes, actually even before the shelter in place. I just have an interest in the topic of pandemic. My background is biology, my master's thesis on universal healthcare and security, and it was around a lot of pandemic issues. So I was watching closely and I was very interested. And we redeployed our entire patrol force to actually keep half of them at home in reserve and healthy, because we watched what happened at San Jose fire, where 80 of their firefighters were infected. We knew that would decimate us. We wouldn't be able to provide street staffing if that happened to us. So we were extremely proactive. We stood up an incident command system model. We redeployed someone full-time to work on just keeping our people safe and develop our protocols. So we got ahead of it really, really fast. So that was definitely a victory. And my biggest fail that I'd love to take back was that I was doing a social hour with some girlfriends where, you know, down here I changed my name to my Peloton nickname, which, although fun, is not very professional. And then the next day when I jumped onto an all elected meetings of supervisors, mayors, city managers, etc., the name popped up full across the screen, and I was like, "Oh my God!"
And you lose your fine motor skills. You can't even prove that fast.
To get off of that call. Yeah, that was a technology fail.
Oh, well, I bet it's humanized you a little bit, so I think that's probably okay. We're dying to know, though, what it is.
I'll never tell.
I think that those meetings are archived, Chief. I think a little investigative journalism. Caretha, have you had any victories or take-backs in this time?
You know, I think since I don't have a day job anymore. So, but I think what I would, and I'm not ready to call it a victory yet, but I think during this time, convening with a few other of my colleagues around starting with COVID and the medical issues that it presents disproportionately to Black Americans across the country, and why that is, but it's much broader than COVID, right? It's around disparities in health in general, and definitely for the Black community and why that exists and what we can do about it and how we can come together as senior Black professionals to rectify that, to really try to understand it, get the word out, and do something about it, because we've been talking about it for years and years and years. But now what COVID has done, I don't want to call it a blessing, but certainly it is a positive outcome, is that it has telescoped to the world what a big issue this is. And it starts with economics. So again, I can't call it a victory, but it is definitely something that I'm spending the lion's share of my time on. And I feel really good about the work that we're going to do.
Well, and it forces everybody to pay attention to it. You can't deny those statistics.
Exactly.
What I found kind of heartening about that was I was at the Antioch Baptist Church in San Jose, which is one of the oldest American churches in San Jose.
I'm familiar with them.
There was a young woman, 85 years old, and she was there to get tested. And I asked her, like, are you not feeling well, or you just want to be tested? She said, well, I want to be tested, but I want to be a good example to my community.
Yes.
So, a good reminder to all of us that we can be good examples to our community, no matter what our position is, no matter what our age is, no matter, what our background is. So that was a nice reminder.
Right.
I think we're almost out of time, but one of our audience members has a very important question, and that is, what is your favorite movie for this shelter in place?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Lots of discovery.
Hangover one more time, I'm gonna die.
During shelter in place is when my husband and I discovered Netflix.
Oh, nice. So you get to watch all kinds of stuff.
I was going to say, with small children, my saving grace has been Disney Plus in this. Not a plug for them, but we may or may not have watched Frozen 2 several hundred.
I just got Frozen 1 out of my head. Come on, Amy.
So for us, it's been, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kim.
Oh, no, Sandra, please, go ahead.
So for us, it's the same, Disney Plus, but Marvel and Star Wars over and over and over again. But, you know, I don't know if this is appropriate, and I'm sure all of us probably have seen it, but something that I felt was actually uplifting and made me crack up nonstop was actually Tiger King. So I will admit that.
I don't get to watch much TV, so this has gotten me in there watching TV more often. And to my boys' chagrin, I've been very into Downton Abbey lately, and they are so disgusted with the fact that I'm watching people drink tea. Downton Abbey.
That is pretty funny. Well, we watched a lot of stuff that we might not have watched otherwise. So, you know, a lot of cooking shows, doing a lot of cooking. So we'll have to kick that COVID-15 as soon as the gyms reach and we go into phase 3 or get a Peloton.
Well, you know, for me, all those icons come across the screen when you turn the TV on, right? Hulu, Netflix, Disney, all of that. Never used it until this. And so now they actually have a use. Which is good. and I do know what Marvel is. So I mean, there are things that I am learning through this whole process. I got stuck on Ozark. So
ooh, that's a good one.
I was shocked that I did that. I watched all seasons. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
The question was uplifting, which Ozarks can kind of be a little dark.
Oh, I didn't catch the uplifting. The uplifting was that I was watching TV at all. So yeah.
Right. You and the chief.
Right.
2 things that if you haven't watched that are entertaining for working moms. So the show Working Moms is pretty uplifting and funny. And then I'm Sorry, which is also available on Netflix. And her humor can be a touch crude at times, but it's just
okay.
A mom navigating challenges.
Because Working Moms is pretty crude too.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
No problem here.
Little racy. Well, thank you all so much. This was really fun, and I hope to be able to do it in person at some point. Who knows when, but I'd be happy to do it. And thank you all so much. I think I feel better that I'm doing all right, and I've definitely taken some good ideas away from you all.
Thanks so much, Kris. You know, it's funny. When I was listening, I was laughing at some of the shows that you were watching, saying you were watching, and I've been watching a whole slew of documentaries. So you're gonna want me as your Trivial Pursuit partner when this is all over. All kinds of useless knowledge I have now. I did want to. This was actually streaming on Facebook Live, and just a couple comments. Someone commented, "This is wonderful." Lita Wong said, as a pastor of a startup church, thank you for keeping us safe, Kimberly, Chief Peterson. I know you're under a lot of pressure. And I have to agree with that. I know that all of our government or city officials, they're being pushed in between trying to stay within compliance and trying to be flexible. And I know that they are approaching it from the standpoint of education as opposed to penalties. So appreciate everything you've done. And you all have been so engaging. Thank you so much. This has really been a joy to sit here and watch with you. I don't want to keep you much longer because I know that Chief Peterson has a family commitment. Her son is being promoted from the 8th grade. Was that right, Kim?
That's right. We got a little 8th grade promotion and then a little drive-by parade. So.
Well, good. Congratulations to him. Congratulations on moving one more to the next level for you. Is this your last one at that age range?
Yeah, one more.
What, younger? Okay. Okay. Well, let me just thank you all for being a part of this. I'm hoping we can have you all back at some point in time. Maybe the next time will be in person. And I do want to reach out and thank Carrie Nash for being a part of this and helping arrange this. And someone that we didn't see on the screen today, and that's Anna Dunnigan for, she was a big puller of the strings behind the curtain, as well as Napoleon Batilau, who is the one who's under the Fremont Chamber of Commerce logo there. So thanks for you folks in the background for doing such a wonderful job, and thank you, and helping us out with this so much.
Thank you.
Before we go, I'm going to, Napoleon is going to put up on the screen the websites for both the Outstanding Mother Alliance and the Fremont Chamber, so they're there for you. One last thank you to our panelists and to Kris for spending the day with us. Thank you so much. We'll hope to see you all soon, and please stay safe.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Cindy.
you.
Thank you, everyone.